folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show. As my audience in the house here is howling away. Maybe not so much. I threw them a treat and said, "Be quiet, please," with my co-host, Lucky Stone. Thank you for being on here tonight to talk about Erich von Däniken.
Yes, happy happy to be here.
Great, thank you. Yeah, great show with Grandpa Brian and Trina on just a little while. If you haven't caught that, go back and watch that, people. Good show. Thank you for doing all that. It really was a thinker that time. So I don't want to get spoiled the show, but go over there and watch it. It really was intriguing. You brought up a lot of good subjects.
Yeah, it was interesting, and that's what with Grandpa Brian. It definitely is a thinker, and then with Trina on there, ooh, what we produce. I mean, it's a lot to think about, and I have notes on that. Just I don't know what to do with, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's for sure. You got to make some notes sometimes because, Trina and Grandpa Brian are quite the thinkers, and
Yes.
you got to stay on top of it because they'll run you over.
Yes.
But they know their stuff. So,
Yes.
and they don't even need notes. I think sometimes I'm far behind when they're on because they just know it. Oh, great thinkers, good people. There's Loretta. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We got Nita the Mystic. We got Loretta in the house. We got Grandpa Brian is joining us, too. Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. And as more people come in, we're going to be talking about Erich von Däniken, who died just the other day. Sorry, the passing of him. He was 90 years old, lived a long time, but he did write this book, Chariots of the Gods, which was one of his first book. Really had a hard time getting it published because people thought it was so far out there, nobody would read it. But this was back in the late 60s, late to mid 60s, wasn't it?
Yeah. He wrote it in the mid '60s and didn't get it published until the later '60s in German, and then from German he got to English. I went into rabbit holes of this. He's got a lot. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories in his life. Yes.
Yeah, and it wasn't even named Chariot of the Gods at first. It was actually a different name I can't recall off the top of my head.
Oh, Children
You
of
probably
something
already
in
know.
German. Yeah, it was Chariots of the Gods into English, but in German it was Children of something or other. It was interesting, but in German.
Yeah, and he lived in Switzerland. He was Swiss, so I suppose German, Swiss, all those other languages. I wouldn't doubt that he knew at least 5 or 6 languages.
Yes, he knew French, he knew English, Italian, German, and then Swiss German, which is kind of there might be another one too. Yes, he was a polyglot, no question about it. The guy knew a lot of languages.
Yeah, he would. Every time I listen to him, and I remember Delabore, he reminds me of Delabore. I mean, I think if Delabore would have been a more outgoing person, and willing to travel the world. I mean, he did travel a little bit, but travel the world and do more things. I think he would have been as famous as Erich von Däniken. He was just smart like that.
The thing about Erich von Däniken is he was a bartender and a hotel manager. So part of that was he needed that skill where to interact with people. And he used that in order to, get more popular and travel. He used because hotel manager or bartender didn't make much money, but he rolled that into his charisma, into making money and traveling.
Yep, exactly. Well, he got to meet the right people. That's how he got his book published. He says he sent it off to all these people and everybody turned him down, said nah. And then he met this guy and the guy says, "I'll make a phone call." And he's like, "Oh, I mean, I already applied at your company, but the guy says, you know what, we'll take a chance on you because you know this other guy, and he gave you the thumbs up. And that's how he got the book published. I guess it's all about who you know, right?
Well, initially he wanted to sell it as a magazine. He said, "Hey, magazine, how about you break my book up into sections and you can publish parts of it in the magazine over the course of a couple of years?" And the guy says, "No, it's got to stay together." And it was his last ditch effort, saying, "No one wants my book. How about we sell it to a magazine and you could do parts of it?" And the guy read it and said, "No, not at all. We're going to make this a book." Yeah, that was the big, that was his last ditch effort, was just put it in. Like, I mean, he was thinking about Dickinson. Not Ray Dickinson. No, goodness. Tale of Two Cities.
Charles Dickinson.
Charles Dickens. Yeah,
Yeah.
Charles Dickens. He got his book published. Also, Mark Twain got, because
Mhm.
he was desperate, and he started serializes into magazines, and that's what Van Daniken says, I'll do that, and then he sold to, and the guy on the magazine company says, you know what, we're associated with a book company, we're gonna buy the rights for your book and publish it.
Mhm.
It was his last. It was crazy. That part of the story was amazing, where he was just like, I gotta get my book published. It's a great book, but no one wants to believe in me.
This is true. This is true. Absolutely. Well, as we dive into tonight, so everybody's piling in here. We got Loretta Ignama, and we got Crystal Shaman joining us. And now that Scotty Boy is here, we can get the show on the road. And tonight is a special night because whether you agree with him or whether you argue with him, whether you laughed at his ideas or you lived with him, Erich von Däniken changed the way millions of people looked at the past. And today we're hearing that he has passed. It hit me, and not just because the man is gone, but because it is an era that started back in the 60s. Um, since Erich wasn't just an author, he was the matchstick that got the fire lit. Something in the human mind, and that's hard to turn off. And once it catches fire, that's a spark that says, hey, wait, if the story we've been told isn't the whole story. That's what we do here on the Milky Way. We question the story. And right here, that question, it's not why so many of us found him in the first place. And if you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't read this book, you go ahead and get it. And it'll tell you more. It's probably, I only listened to one other book, but it's one of the most important books. And most people walk through history like a museum. They just look. Have you ever been to a museum, Lucky?
Yeah, I've been to a lot of museums. Yes, yes.
Well, exactly. You walk through, you look, you kind of wonder, you scratch your head, and you move on. You don't really question anything. So, as you stand behind the rope, you read the little sign, you nod your head, and you keep walking. Erich von Däniken walked into that same museum and he looked at the biggest exhibits on Earth: the pyramids, the megaliths, the temples, the ancient texts, the strange carvings. And he basically said, nope, I'm just I'm not just reading the sign. I want to know what really happened. And that's why his work became so powerful. And because he didn't just talk about history, he made it feel alive. He made it feel like the past wasn't dead and like it was watching us back. And now let's be honest, and we're going to be honest today. Erich von Däniken didn't convince anybody. A lot of people say he stretched the evidence and that he jumped too far and he made assumptions and turned mysteries into answers. And even Erich admitted, I watched some of his interviews. He said, yeah, I did make a lot of assumptions. And, I kind of tried to push the truth and I was wrong. But now, other scientists followed through and, changed their minds too. And we actually studied this stuff. And sometimes that criticism, is fair. And that's the big part we can't ignore. Even when people disagree with him, they still read him, they still talk about him, and they still argue about him. And that's the reason is simple. He made the world interesting again. He made people look up at the stars and feel that ancient humans feeling we've all had. The feeling of being small and yet somehow connected to something huge. And because Eric talked about the gods, he wasn't just talking about religion. He was talking about a pattern that shows up all over the world. Stories of beings from the sky, and teachers and watchers and visitors, and stories of knowledge arriving suddenly. Stories of fire, wheels, thrones, and chariots. Well, he asked, what if those weren't just metaphors? What if some of those stories were memories? And whether you believe the answer is yes or no, you have to admit something. And it's a dangerous question. Because if you ask that question seriously, then the whole past changes shape. And maybe that's why people love him. And maybe that's why people hate him. Because Erich von Däniken wasn't selling comfort, he was selling disruption. He was saying, don't just accept what you've been told, look again. And that's not popular message in any field, not religion, especially not religion, and not science, of course, not academia, government, and not history. Because once you give people permission to look again, well, they don't stop. And now some people came to him for aliens, and that's the headline everybody remembers. But I think it's his real legacy is deeper than that. And Eric, he made curiosity respectable. He made it okay to ask the questions to get you side-eyed at the dinner table. That's when the relatives all look at you and say, maybe we shouldn't have invited him. If we're wrong, if we missed something, and if the ancient world knew more than we think, what if there were chapters of human story we've lost and were never told? Well, Eric took those questions and he made them public. He made them mainstream and he made them personal. He didn't write like a professor handing down a verdict. He wrote like a man sitting across from the table saying, look at this. Now tell me what you think. And people responded to that because at the end of the day, humans don't just want facts, humans want meaning. We want a story that explains why the world feels strange and why it feels like something is missing, and why we carry myths that never die, why certain monuments feel like they were built with purpose beyond survival, and why the old stories keep whispering. There is more to reality than you've been told. So tonight, we're doing this show for him, not as blind believers and not as smug debunkers, but as people who respect the power of ideas, because ideas outlive bodies. And there's one thing Eric proved, and it's that an idea, even one person can argue over, can change the world. And now here's how we're going to do this tonight. We're going to honor him first. We're going to talk about the man, his work, and what he brought into the culture. And there we're going to look at the biggest claims, the biggest ones that made him famous, and then we're going to treat them the right way. Not like a joke, not religion, not the case file. We're going to ask, what do we know? What don't we know? And what's possible? What's a stretch? So we're going to just dive right in. If you read any of his books, if you haven't or you have, just dive into it and ask those questions. And that's what we're doing tonight. What do you think of that, Lucky?
No, absolutely. That's the thing about Erich von Däniken. He had the ability to bring the stuffy scientists' information to the mainstream. That's the one thing he did, because back then, scientists, archaeologists, museum curators, they were kind of like upper echelon. They were kind of secretive, the philosopher, teachers, professors, hidden. He
Mm-hmm.
brought it into the light. He wanted people to be involved, to understand. And I think, honestly, even if all the Nazca lines information he provided was all wrong, it wasn't aliens, nothing, he exposed them so people got interested in them.
Yeah.
No matter what the archaeologists say, the guy's wrong. There's no aliens, it's just people making it. He brought something that no one would have paid attention, and they would just paved over it. They would have just built on them, because some of them roads were built through them. But
Yep.
he saved the Nazca lines, no question about it. His efforts saved the Nazca lines, because no matter what the archaeologists do, they're boring, They're, they're pompous, they're arrogant, but they don't really know how to deal with regular people. Eric von Däniken brought that out to everything. He just brought information that wouldn't be available to us because it's too complicated for us, regular people. He brought it to the regular people. That's what's great about him. And you're frozen. So I'm going to continue on until Robert, you back?
Yeah. Oh boy, how about that? Look at
It's,
it. I swear that it just likes to come in and out.
it's all
Ah,
good, but that's Robert. That's Robert Van Däniken. He comes in and out.
oh yeah, I could hear the little thing dingling in my ear, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then away I went. Is gone. But speaking of the Nazca lines, let's jump right into there because that was one of the first things he talked about in this book. And as soon as I can put some of this up, we'll have something to view. But the Nazca lines. How many of you out there have not heard of the Nazca lines or have heard of the Nazca lines? I don't know. Let me know in the comments there or the section here so we can. Um, but the Nazca lines, believe it or not, a lot of these things were, how should I say, even the pyramids were only discovered in the last, couple of centuries. It ain't like, oh, back in the 1500s, they discovered all these things and blah, 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 blah. And no, there was no discoveries. And what they did discover, they just destroyed. Like when Cortez went over to South America, he wasn't interested in facts and how our world was formed and who our creators were. He knew who the creator was. It was God. And that was all he needed to know. And he wanted to spread the Bible and the word, and he wanted to collect all the gold, and that was it. Gold, silver, and profit for him, destroying everything in his way, including the people.
True. Well, that's the Nazca lines. They didn't know about them until they could get above them, and there was no way until they got a plane. That's it.
Yeah. And that was 60s, wasn't it? It was the 50s, 52, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken.
So it was, because that's when they got a plane over and they went, what is going on here?
Yes.
Hummingbird.
Yes. 37, I think it was the Nazca lines. I got it here. It's in the Papa Valley in the Andes. It is a strip of level ground, some 37 miles long and 1 mile wide. Kind of a weird place. And, all these things run parallel to each other, and they're gigantic. And the archaeologists say, oh, it's roads. Well, I tell you what, you're not driving on a road like this. You'll just be going in circles all day, especially out in the desert, up in the high mountains of the Andes. What's the point?
It is absolutely amazing. This one is not as symmetrical, so tough. Maybe they did draw it in, but some of them are the spider is symmetrical, which is crazy. How did they get it so symmetrical without seeing it?
Well, and that's the thing too, is if you look here, look at this road thing, how straight it is.
Absolutely.
And then you look, how even where the waters or whatever had run off, the runoff had went, this is still there. And then the thing is why would you go out into the middle of nowhere and build this road in a desert in the high mountains that goes nowhere? Time, energy, manpower, food, you're expending a lot of your resources, especially back in those days, to make something. And Erich von Däniken brought that to our attention, saying, hey, people, you need to question this. This isn't normal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's the monkey one. And you're thinking, well, maybe it is a monkey. It looks like a monkey. And the curly tail, as you can see, and the head and ears. But that's another thing. That's what our mind tells us it is. But what is it really? That's a good question.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's a very good question.
All because it has, 5 fingers. and it's only got 3 toes. Why didn't they put 5 toes
Hmm.
if it was really a monkey? And why make it so big? Why make it have such a curly tail? Monkeys' tails don't curl like that either.
You're right. You're right.
So, what were they trying to describe here? Um, it's like looking at a cloud. You look at a cloud and it looks like an elephant, it looks like this, it looks like a dragon, but that's because we want to see a dragon. It reminds us of a dragon, but this could be anything. And so, that's what we lead ourselves to believe, this was a monkey, but that's what those people would have had contact with.
Right.
And we'll move on here. More straight lines, as you can see this straight. Where are they going? And nowhere. Could this be an airstrip? That's what Erich von Däniken was saying. Could these
Yep.
be airstrips? That looks like an airstrip. If you were landing a plane, this would look like an airstrip to you. Then it makes sense. But what kind of plane would land in a desert?
True.
Was it a desert always? And that's another question. Is this was this a desert? Always. Who knows? I don't know.
Yep.
But it leads us to that question. Question everything. Don't just take it and say, "Oh, look at these Indians went out there, 1,000 years ago and made these roads." You know how long it would have took native people without trucks and carts and horses and wagons and all of this stuff to move and make these things? It would be almost impossible.
Hmm. Took a
It
lot
would
of
take,
effort to keep it so
yeah,
straight too.
yes, very straight, very, very straight. Now, I don't doubt that humans are capable of making something so straight. That is not the question so much, is because you could make things straight. You're gonna practice in engineering and sight glasses, and you could figure it out.
I don't
But
know. I put in fences, and we thought we are going straight for a long time, and then we looked later, and you see after you finally look, and you start to line it up, and you see this isn't straight at all. It's still there's a curve,
yep,
but you have all the lines and everything, and you've got everything measured out, and you think you put the post holes in, up, got it done. Then you get to the end, and you look, and you can see isn't straight. What they've done is absolutely this one to me, how they made this without seeing from above. Some of them they weren't that symmetrical. I can see. Okay, they had some plans or wrote something up, but this one, how they did this is far beyond me. The spider
yeah,
was one thing that is so amazing. This is the one thing that amazed me the most.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, look at this. It's just phenomenal. Artistry. I mean, and then again, we assume it's a spider,
Hmm.
but is it really a spider? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Just
True,
because it's
true.
got 8 legs, I mean, that's what I ask myself. It resembles a spider, and we want it to be a spider, but because it's got the sack on the back, it looks like a tarantula would be. But then why is the head different?
You're right.
You're a spider guy. Does a tarantula have a head like that?
It more looks like an ant's head than a tarantula's head.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
but that's it, because it looks more like um, I don't know what to call it, but it's not fang because tarantulas have fangs. This looks more like chelicerae that will just chew things up. So yeah, it looks like a combination of two, but who knows? You don't know. I don't know what kind of spiders they used to have at that time. So maybe they did copy one of their spiders and make it enormous. But I don't know. It's just so symmetrical, though. No matter what
yeah,
this thing is, it lines up so well that it must have been excruciating to draw. And the problem with this also is that the land that they made this from, they couldn't make any mistakes. There was no way they couldn't fill it up. We went off a little bit. We got to fill it back in and draw again. No, once they drew it, the earth won't. It's scarred, so they can't change anything.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And for it to last hundreds or maybe even thousands of years like this, is amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing that it didn't get washed away, didn't, you know, get worn away, and it's still there. These people had a purpose. Now here's another one. This is in a hillside. And
yep.
again, what are they drawing? What are they carving into this hillside that looks like this?
It's a weird
Yeah.
looking creature.
Yeah. It's got 2 feet. We can see that. That's pretty obvious.
Well,
2 eyes, and we want to see a human there. We really do. We want to see a person, but does it, well, I'm sure these natives were capable of making, if they could make all this other stuff so well, why this?
the doesn't wear shoes. I mean, sorry, the natives probably, I believe natives didn't have shoes because, so this thing definitely has shoes on and gloves, and it's not, it's not human. Whatever this is, whatever they're trying to depict, it for them, it doesn't represent one of them. How does I say that? It's just trying to put it that way. It doesn't represent a typical native for that area. So what they're trying to create, I don't have a concept of because again, I don't think they had big, bulky shoe-like things.
Yeah,
um, Big bulky clothes. Um, Head. The head doesn't make any sense at all. It looks like
yeah,
a helmet
yeah,
with eye holes.
with
It's a
eye
little
holes,
crazy.
exactly. Because you'd think they would have made the eyes a little bit different instead of being around like that.
Hmm.
And they had, like I said, if they're that good at carving out stuff like the spider,
Absolutely.
why
Yes.
why wouldn't you carve out a human like a human? It just makes sense, right? And this is what we're supposed to question because without Erich von Däniken, nobody would question this stuff. The scientists would have said this is what it is. It was people just making art in the desert. The Incas didn't have anything to do, so
Yeah.
they got bored, so they did these carvings. I'm
Well,
thinking, no,
yeah. It is crazy.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna go to was it this to Titicaca,
Mhm.
or Tiwanaku,
You're not
sorry,
okay.
Tiwanaku, and we have the Great Idol. If you don't know what this is the I got it here too. It'll tell me a little more about it. But the Great Idol is it's 100. It's tons. Tiwanaku, yeah, it's 13,000 feet up in Peru. Uh, way up there in the mountains, and this thing is huge. It's called the Great Idol. It's a
Mhm.
single block of red sandstone, is longer than 24 feet and weighs 20 tons. It was found in the old temple, and again, this is what we go. This thing is huge,
Mhm.
13,000 feet up. I don't know if you know anything about being an elevation, but as you go up in elevation, there's no oxygen. After about 8 or 9,000 feet, man, you got a hard time breathing.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the thing. But also, if you go down to get it, it's if let's say you're used to up here high, once you go to the lower elevations, you're affected a different way. So it would be a tough haul to go. Oh, I live up here. I want that big rock from down there to bring it back up again. It would be tough. Just
Yeah,
experience the altitude sickness.
yeah, exactly. And it wouldn't take one guy; it would take hundreds or maybe
Yes.
thousands of guys to move this thing. And for for that elevation in the middle of nowhere, which this place is, Tiwanaku is in the middle of nowhere. It really is. It's out there. And was there a great city there? It's up on top of this plain, 13,000 feet. There's no water. Are you hauling all your food and water up there? I mean, the the possibilities are phenomenal. Why would you put your city on a 13,000 foot level unless it wasn't on 13,000 feet umpteen years ago? Then it makes sense.
Hmm.
And then it just makes you wonder, like, Why did they haul these big blocks there? Why did they make a temple there?
You're right.
And of course we have Viracocha, Tiwanaku, the gateway. You know, Viracocha was their god who brought them all the information. Was this guy some kind of an alien guy that came from somewhere that told him how to do all this the easy way? And it makes you wonder. It really does.
Yeah, it's
You
fascinating.
know, what is he doing here? Is it, it makes us all want to question stuff. And this is what the Erich von Däniken book, The Gods of Chariots, it talks about so much more than we're going to cover tonight.
Yes.
Uh, that was this guy with all this stuff around his head. Was he wearing a helmet? Was he carrying, what was he carrying here? Is he carrying technology or something on that order? Is he wearing, again, you were talking about boots or feet or whatever. Is he, doesn't show him with feet.
Hmm.
So we have to wonder, was
Yeah,
this guy was it a robot? Who knows? We're inventing our own robots nowadays, but who knows if this was a robot sent from another distant galaxy, came here, taught the people what to do, and
yep.
then left again.
It is interesting because again, these things that I mean, no matter what the archaeologists say, he brought these to people to fascinated and be interested in it to save this stuff. Because the archaeologists, a lot of them were so stuffy that you want more money. But now people are interested that they could get tourism and get people to visit this thing. So that's the thing that Erich von Däniken did, got people interested. 100%.
He did. He did. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Now, this is I
Oh
forget what
boy.
this is, the pillar of the sun or something like that, the gateway. The gateway. And you can see it here, all put together and looking nice. But, and that's what the tourists see. This is what the tourists see. But this is what it really looked like back in the day.
Hmm.
And they fixed it up to make it look good, because who's going to want to see the gateway of the sun and go up there to see this thing that's all collapsing?
Yep.
And so our perception of reality, I hate to say it, has been twisted a little bit. I mean, it's great that we can see it all put together, but there was something that happened that destroyed a lot of this stuff. And then
Yes.
they went back in there, like Stonehenge is another one of those places
Hmm.
where it was literally, there was nothing there but a pile of rocks, and they went and reassembled
Hmm.
it back in the 50s. And
Yep.
now it's a great tourist attraction. And people are like, oh boy, these 20-ton stones and blah blah blah. No, they went and dug all that shit up and put it all up and fixed it, and made it into what it is today. So it looks like something, but they didn't fix it completely. They left enough stuff laying on the ground, but they put enough stuff up there so that you can see what it looks like.
Hmm.
And that's what they did here. So do you think they should fix things, or do you think they should leave things? That is a good question.
It is a very good question. I am not sure. Um, it is nice to see the whole assembled thing, but it'd also be good. Well, let's just say after the archaeologists get all their hands into it and see it as it was, you know, finally resting place, then they can, especially now, we can document it, computer imaging and everything, and save it forever. And then after that, put it back to what they believe best interest or the best guess how things went together. Because who knows if this is exactly how it went? We don't know. It
Yeah,
just kind of, this is the best guess. It makes sense.
yeah. I mean, and you're right. That's what people like to do. They like to put things back together, their best guess, and well, we don't even know if it's right or wrong because we don't know what it means. What is this all about? What if this was the way it's supposed to be? Who knows? I mean, I don't think it was because the block is broken, but still, what caused this anyway? Did some army come in? Was there a giant earthquake? How long has this piece of stone and stuff been here? and obviously armies didn't march up 13,000 feet to this elevation to wreck this. Do you think so, or this was a natural occurrence?
I, it would take a lot of effort to knock it down for no real reason, especially if it's up high. But if you're an army from another village, you're probably climbing up the mountain to do this. And if you there's no way you'd be knocking it down because you'd be again altitude sickness because these places are up and down. So I don't think earthquake maybe, but I can't see an army doing this. Just being, we're going to attack you and we're mad at you, so we're going to destroy your buildings. No, I think it would be either earthquake or something far more different, like
Yeah,
you know, like an
yeah. Like
asteroid or
what was
something.
they have those H blocks? I don't know if I got a picture of them, but the H blocks, you've seen those where they're all scattered all over the place, and you could put them all back together. They're kind of all formed the same, but but they're scattered all over. How do you move those blocks?
Well,
Nobody came up there and destroyed those blocks.
that's the problem. They believe an earthquake did that, but the earthquake to do that would have taken the mountain down.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
problem. It doesn't make sense. So okay, fine. Ancient site, earthquake, got knocked down, fell down. No, these things fit together so well that for it to fall apart, like it exploded. It just the parts are everywhere. So yeah, it is interesting. The H blocks, those don't make any sense. So if Erich von Däniken is wrong about everything, that is the one area where you say, I don't know. Archaeologists, they don't have a good theory about what happened here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, now we're going to move on to another thing he talks a lot about, and this is the Sumerian kings list. Uh, Blocks of Sumerian text that were found, and eventually, as the story goes, there was three different blocks that were found, different text in different languages, and somebody figured out what the one block was, and then was able to translate all the other blocks in hieroglyphs with the Rosetta Stone. Correct?
Yeah, it's because of Greek, and yeah, it's complicated, but yes, because of the stone saying different languages and seeing, because that's what they did. They had the different languages next to each other, and they could understand. Okay, now we know what this means because the thing about Greek is it evolved, but it evolved enough that they could trace it back.
Yes.
While Sumerian, forget it. They had no idea what Sumerian, and then from there they were able to also translate Egyptian hieroglyphs. But again, without the Greek, we would never know what anything is until now, which is the robots, the AI is translating everything because there are tablets that we don't know what they say. Because the problem with Sumerian, the cuneiform, is just like our Roman letters, where we have English, Latin, French, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, all these languages use the same letters, but the words mean different things.
Yeah.
Now, AI is being able to translate tablets that we have no idea what they say because they use the same letters for different words. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I was just reading something about it just the other day, yesterday actually, about they have
Mhm.
all these tablets they cannot translate because they use the same letters for different languages, Arcadia and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
now they're like, hey, AI, can you help us? The AI's like, yep, we got it. But now they're like, okay, AI, like all things, you're close. Thank you. Let's try again.
Yeah. But it is a stepping stone, and AI will get better at reading this stuff.
Exactly. That's
Um,
exactly what's happening. Exactly. This is AI. That's the one thing I cannot fault AI for. The old languages we have, the scrolls that we can't open because they'll just disintegrate. It can scan it, and from there take the scans, and then flatten out a rolled thing up and imagine it flat, flat in the computer world, and translate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. So we got a lot of translating to do. So, um,
Oh yeah.
so around 3000 BC, archaeologists found a model of the some of this stuff, and the Sumerians have applied this, and eventually they found 6,000 clay tablets were found in the town of Nippur in 1995, or 95 miles south of Baghdad.
Yeah.
So, like I said, and then there was 800. Well, anyway, there was all these things that were found, from way back in the day, but they still haven't translated them all. The thing is when they do get this computer stuff going, they'll be able to scan this and translate them. And some they've translated or are just, what do you call it? Transactions between people.
Yeah.
Some,
yeah.
And that's where we get the tale of Gilgamesh is from these Sumerian tablets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, we get the Sumerian kings list off of these tablets. And they don't look like much. They're blocks with all this uniform writing. And if you could read it, it would probably make more sense to you. They're in museums today, but they tell the story of the kings list that they ruled for over 241,000 years. Now, it's hard to imagine that, but could it really be? Why would they write it down, and not just in one spot, but over and over on tablets they found in different places? Why would they do that if it wasn't true?
You're right. It is interesting. There's a lot to this. There's a lot of questions in our history.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of information that we don't quite understand, and that's no matter what happens. I cannot believe that us little primitive Homo sapiens killed off Neanderthals. No matter
Yeah.
what we believe about Neanderthals had a brain bigger than ours. They had a creative culture. We know they're creative. We know they had abilities that sometimes surpassed our heritage, our ancestors. How did
Yeah.
we kill them off without some help from outside? That's where I think that was the one thing that I'm confused about. That there were also, we have 3 different versions of chimpanzees: the bonobos, the regular chimpanzees, and another one that we only think there was only one, but now we know there are 3 different versions. So if there are 3 versions of chimpanzees, why is there only one version of human? They could have hidden somewhere, although Bigfoot might be a hominid, who knows? But besides Bigfoot, let's take Bigfoot off the thing because we don't know what he is. He's too big to be a Neanderthal or a Cro-Magnon or anything. But again, what happened to the other hominids? Why didn't they last? I don't think we could have killed them off. I really don't. I think we were just different kinds of hominids. But again, this is one of the things that 240,000 years, that could be multiple kinds of humans when they said, you know what, these skinny, hairless little monsters, they're small enough that we can overpower them. Let's get rid of the rest of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, was it disease? Was it famine? Was it climate change? If you got all the Neanderthals that were living in Europe, for instance,
Yep.
And the Ice Age comes along and destroyed their land and their area and pretty much wiped them out. And there's, they would die out on their own, just like humans today. If we're around, we have this, World War III kind of thing going on. Would we maybe, extinct ourselves? It could be. We have all these kinds of things going on, weapons that we don't even understand today. And the few that may go underground might develop into something else. You never know.
Mm-hmm.
And,
you're right.
And I look at it this way, and this is kind of a little bit off topic, but the idea of changing, evolution. And I argued with somebody about this a long time ago about evolution. And I said, no, a horse is a horse, a mouse is a mouse. You can't turn a horse into a mouse. You can turn a frog maybe into a fish, but you can't turn a horse into a dog. you know, or a dog into a horse. It just doesn't work like that. Evolution on that part, you can't turn a fish into a chicken and then the chicken into a human kind of thing. It doesn't work like that. It has to, when that animal dies out, it dies out completely. I mean, and then you move on from there. So was there multiple bunches of humans and we're the last one left? I mean, if you want to look at it as human wise, you know, we got the Neanderthals, the Denisovans, the Hobbit people. I mean, how many? I think they're up to 5 or 6 now that they found. Am I wrong on that?
There's a lot. There's a lot more that we have. Unfortunately, a lot of the bones we have are only parts of jaws and parts of fingers and teeth and stuff. So we have a lot of early hominids, early humans that we don't even know what they look like because we only have parts of them. But that's another thing, and they're all over the place. They're all over Africa, Europe, and Asia because the Denisovans they moved into Asia. The hobbits they were off in south of Asia, maybe into Australia. We don't know. I don't think there's many. I don't think there's any primitive humans hominids in Australia. But again, that just means none, no bones stayed. None in North America either. We know of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? No, nobody knows. But and this is what the von Däniken was trying to tell us. He was saying, who knows? Maybe we should question this. Maybe we should spend some of that, you know, money that we're spending on rockets and you know, fighting wars on trying to figure out who we really are. And that's what he kept saying a lot. I remember listening to some of his interviews, and that's what he's saying. Why are we spending all this money on, you know, this, that, and the other when we should probably be spending some on finding out where we come from? Why was there a downfall of man? Or obviously, we must have had technology back in the day that could move those stones and make the pyramids. You know, why did these people live so long? Here we got the Sumerian kings list, 8 rulers collectively reigning for astonishing 241 years prior to the Great Flood. Maybe we should spend a little time and money on trying to figure out what the Great Flood was. Obviously, it altered history.
Yeah, yeah.
Because after that, man started living a shorter life. And we can tell that Gilgamesh was on the king's list. And he only reigned for 300 years, but he was after the flood. And even though Gilgamesh was alive in the Gilgamesh story, he goes to find Utnapishtim, who was Noah. And Noah was still alive, even though, yeah, so that's telling you that Noah lived a long time because he was from the time before the flood. But Gilgamesh couldn't live that long. He was after the flood, and something had changed. So he ruled for 300 years, and everybody before him reigned for thousands of years. Was the conditions on, maybe that's a question we should be asking ourselves, was the conditions on Earth totally different before the flood?
Well, Gilgamesh tried to get the secret to longer life, to immortality. He tried to seek it. So there was something that they had that they knew prior to the flood that didn't go over past the flood, and no one surrendered it. So, you know, he went and tried, and all he had to do was I forget what it was. He was going to do some trial, and he failed the trial. And like, oh, sorry, you can't have it. But again, the trial was impossible. It seemed possible, but it was impossible in the end. But again, yeah, was there a technology or something that existed that was, quote, forgotten or just not passed on after the flood? You're right. That's in there. It's interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. Let's see, and then of course we have the Anunnaki. We have the Sumerians drawing these pictures of these winged men that came down and brought knowledge, and we still have to question, according to von Däniken, Oh, well, the Sumerians just popped up out of nowhere from hunter gatherers to all of a sudden with the civilization, with reading, writing, a language, and not an easy language. Sumerian is 2,000 characters
Mhm.
language. And of course, they had irrigation and waterways, built giant cities. They had mathematics, sent their kids to school, blah, blah, blah. We can go on and on. Basically, a pretty modern day society. They
Yes.
knew that the Earth, the world, the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, and that the Earth revolved around the sun, and these sky beings, the Anunnaki, would come down, and they helped them get this way.
Yeah, but also Göbekli Tepe is before the Sumerians, and that messes everything up because there's no way hunter-gatherers could make Göbekli Tepe. And
Yeah,
that was discovered. Van Däniken knew nothing about that. So that was. But again, it goes back to what's going on with our history that we don't know, which he gave to us. That's the one thing. I mean, what this guy did, he got us to question. Wait a second, why? Because they pushed the idea that everything's settled science. We know everything. It's science, and science is not settled. It's never. Anyone who says settled science is lying to you, because science is always learning from the past. So there's no such thing as settled science. But again, it goes back to every time we look, it goes further and further back. So what happened in Göbekli Tepe? We're still learning because a lot of it's still buried underground. We don't know. So this what we might learn about the Sumerians from Göbekli Tepe, or we might learn a whole different civilization. We don't know. But again, all this is just all fascinating.
well, exactly, and like I said, you're right. You said the Globeki Tepe throws a wrench into things. Obviously, these people had you know but then again, we haven't found all the cities, we
Right.
haven't found all the buried treasure, we haven't found everything yet. We may come up with another Globeki Tepe that's 20,000 years old someday soon, and question that and go, oh my gosh, look at this giant building they and then of course we have to wonder about, will the governments cover it up? Who's funding the digs? Who's funding these people that are doing the archaeology? And will they allow them to present it to the public, changing their opinions, their knowledge on what is history is?
Absolutely. And there's also the idea. The Great Flood might have been basically that there was some messed up with the poles where the actual shoreline was miles and miles and miles, away, and now the Great Flood moved the shoreline up. So basically, a lot of these sites might be under the ocean
Yeah.
because there was a lot of ice. So we don't know. That's something that they discovered a civilization off the shore of some civil. I don't even remember. I think it was off of Spain or something like that. It was a fishing village they found underwater, and like, how the hell did a fishing village way out here? And then they realized this was way older than any civilization we've ever seen. But again, it was hunter gatherers. So, but it was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, we know of the Sumerians that lived in this area here, but this is only you know why this area is easy to find is because most of this is desert. There ain't
Yep.
trees and jungle, and like in South America where all that stuff is buried under jungle
Hmm.
or eroded from rain and
Yep.
mud and rivers and stuff like that. This is all desert. It's easy to see. You just look over there and go, wow, look at that pyramid. You know, that's why, of course, the pyramids. Let's talk about that for a minute. Uh, you look over here and you see the pyramids. Who built these things? Who took the time and effort to build these giant pyramids? Was it the Egyptians who barely could build a house and lived in the desert and they had what, chariots and a few horses? And was there enough people and energy and time to build these things? Tell me that. Why didn't they put their rulers. They say these are tombs for the rulers, but the tombs for the rulers were found somewhere else.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, and that's the thing. Inside these pyramids, there are no hieroglyphs, or there's very few. It's very Spartan in hieroglyphs. All the hieroglyphs are in the king's uh, land of the kings. So that, yeah, it is interesting. So if they're
Yeah,
supposed to be tombs, why aren't they look more like the other tombs? Why they
yeah,
change? Why they change their mindset? Land of the Kings, Valley of the Kings. So why the
yeah,
Valley of the Kings? All of the king's chambers are full of words, full of hieroglyphics. Well, these very little. Doesn't
yeah.
make
You
any
make
sense.
a lot of sense there. Why would you bury all your people over in one spot in the Valley of the Kings and then build these giant pyramids way the heck over here? For
There was
what?
an, there's another weird thing is that inside the pyramids there is no soot,
Yes.
and the best mirrors they had only had a 40% reflection of light. So they said, oh, they use mirrors to get the light in there,
Yep.
but the mirrors were silver, and the silver only reflected 40%, and that was the best they could do. How the hell can they get all that mirror light into deep into the cavern and still be able to function? All this is just questions upon questions upon questions. What exactly? How did they see to do all the work, the final work? Because there are, even if there's no hieroglyphs, there is still a lot of fine detail carving in those things to make the walls so smooth and beautiful. So yeah, the pyramids are enigma in themselves.
Yeah. And now that they've discovered that there's, like you said, the science has never settled. They've discovered that there's giant pillars and pathways underneath the pyramids that, just boggles the mind. How far do these things go down into the earth? And then, if that's the case, who built them? Because obviously the Egyptians didn't leave a blueprint and that said, "Hey, here's our blueprint. Here's the papers. This is how we built them." You'd think after it took them all this time to build these pyramids that there would be some scrolls of showing how they were building them.
Yeah,
They did, the Egyptians wrote down a lot of stuff. Why didn't they leave us a little bit, a nugget somewhere?
true. They wrote down everything, and there's some information, but it doesn't quite match. And that's the problem. A lot of the information was written after the fact. So, best guess. Because, yeah, imagine, let's just say after the pyramids were made, they were still there a long time. And maybe, okay, we have ideas of how they could have done it, and they wrote that down, but we don't know at the time this was done what happened. It was all written after the fact. So, who knows?
Yeah. And they call it Khufu's pyramid, Khufu, well, did he just slap his label on it? Uh, Maybe. I think that's kind of half of it. And again, we were talking about when these things were dug up 200 years ago. Otherwise, they sat out here. Nobody knew what they were, and they just didn't do anything. They were buried under the sand. Most of our history that we've discovered has been in the last 200-300 years. That's it.
Mhm. Yeah. Well,
We're ba-
the Sphinx is a good one because that was buried up to its head for the longest time, but
mm,
they don't match. That head is too small for that body. It just doesn't match. And so, what's going on? And that's when the belief is that when the head was actually made, when it was covered, that there was something there that was kind of worn away, and they made a head out of it for Cheops. I don't know who that is, but
yeah,
yeah. So whatever it is that there was a either a lion's head or a jackal's head. They're not sure which one, but they believe that one of them, of course, it wore away, and then they carved that because the body doesn't match the head no matter what.
this is true. This is true. If you look at it, this could be older than the pyramids, or maybe they were built at the same time. We don't know anymore.
Right? You're right.
We just don't know. We got some scientist out there that tells us this stuff, and we have to believe it. And I do believe that the Sphinx. You're right. It's small enough that people could have recarved this. It makes sense. Exactly what you said. It makes a lot of sense.
They claim that blah blah. There was a different material. There was rain at one point. All these theories, but the head does not match the body. There's no question about it. They got to agree with that. So why? You know, why? And and they won't admit that the head was carved after. There was something there before, and they found it. And they go, you know what? It's ugly. We're gonna put our king's head on it.
Exactly. Well, wouldn't every king want his head put on there? Be like, hey, I'm the king. Make it into my image.
That's true.
That's usually what rulers do. They
true.
tear down the old statues and they put up the new.
Yep.
Now, here's one thing I want to say about all of this is, if you don't know, Egypt, was a ruled for thousands of years, and yet most countries nowadays, about 300 years before they get thrown over or dissolve or morph into something else. The Roman Empire, thousands of years. Egypt, thousands of years. Samaria, thousands of years. But today, we can barely hold a country together for 300 years. Why is that?
Technology, probably.
Could be. Or, yeah, probably technology. Okay, so we're going to go back over to South America. And one of his things in his book, as we kind of get to the end of our show here, is this: they found some jade necklaces over in the Mayan ruins over there. And jade, well, where do you get jade from?
Well, usually Asia or extreme North America. I do there was some jade in up in Canada. They have some jade, but
yeah,
I don't think there's much jade in South America. I'm not sure though.
That's right. They found jade necklaces in Peru and the Mayan culture. These were Mayans. Mayan necklaces made out of jade, and the jade comes from China. And it makes you, well, how did these Mayans get jade necklaces? And this is another thing he questions. He says, hey, if everybody was stuck on their own continent and there was no worldwide travel and there was none of this and that and the other, how did they get jade necklaces? And how come the jade comes from China? Because they can test that stuff.
That's the thing. The thing about jade is where it came from just by the quality of it. Because, yeah, I do know that Canadian jade is different than China's jade. There's no question. It looks totally different. It's jade because of its softness and its material, but again, it looks different.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, it just makes you wonder: was there global travel, or maybe did somebody bring them the jade? And obviously somebody brought them the jade, because this is not a Chinese carving. This is a Mayan carving. Somehow they got the jade over to the Mayan culture, and again, that makes you just start wondering all about this stuff. It's crazy to think of.
Oh, absolutely.
And and again, this is the book, Charity of the Gods. He wrote 40 books or something like that. It's amazing amount of books.
Yeah, he wrote in English, German, Swiss. Of course, he was Swiss, but yeah, he was definitely a polyglot. He knew a lot of languages. That's the one thing about the guy. The guy knew a lot of languages, and he knew how to take information that he got from different languages and incorporate them into one place, which is another thing he did. He took a lot of information from different places and put it into one, which is what Chariots of the God was an amalgam of different theories from different people, but he put it together and made them fit.
Yeah.
In a logical sense, although in the 60s, so he took information from the 60s the best he could. Now we go, oh, that's ridiculous. That's presumptuous. But again, he took the best he had from the time.
Yep, he did. And he admitted it in a lot of his interviews that, yeah, I was wrong. I I didn't know everything. I made a few assumptions, but it's to get you to think. I wasn't perfect on anything, and nobody is. Most of this information that he was putting out there was just discovered back in those days. And as you know, as well as I do, is that having information back, heck, even back when we were young, since you and me are pretty much the same age here, when we were young, it was hard. You couldn't go to the computer and look something up. You had to find it in a library or a magazine, or really search it out. Correct?
Encyclopedias, yes, it's
Yes,
encyclopedias.
encyclopedia.
You either had to go to the library, your school library, the town library, or if you were lucky, you had a neighbor who had a collection of encyclopedias, which some of them were 10 years old. But again,
Mhm.
encyclopedias at that time, a 10-year-old encyclopedia was as good to you as a new one at the library. That's the one thing, and I happen to have my grandparents had a set of encyclopedias that they bought from the library because the library couldn't keep all the encyclopedias. They would sell off old ones, and that's what we used to do. We used to either go to the library or go to my grandparents' house. But yeah, you had no idea about anything unless you went and got the full encyclopedia. Encyclopedia Britannica was a source. It was our Google, no question about it.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know how my mom got encyclopedias. She had this, and they were white. I remember they were white,
Hmm.
and we had all these encyclopedias at home. And I remember just getting them and looking through them and just reading and imagining the places and far away and near and the information that was in it. It was like, watching a movie or a documentary. That was one of those things that fascinated me the most. It was unbelievable. The places, and they had pictures in them, and some were black and white and a few were colored. And oh man, that just made me uh, a studier of history right off the bat there, because it was so fun to do and look through those. I could do that all day long.
Well, we had was it National Geographic, those yellow magazines.
Mm-hmm.
We had a room from roof to floor of National Geographic. Some were missing because of they took pictures of scantily clad primitive women, and but Catholic family. They had to go. They were secret. Even though it's like National Geographic was the science magazine. No, that was too scandalous. We didn't need that one. But yeah, I remember we had a room full of these, and that was another source of information. We used to use those. We had to put them back where they are because they had to be in chronological order. Because every year, I believe National Geographic printed an index to say what happened that year, so you could find out what had happened. It was I don't remember that the National we had a room full of them because that's what they do. Because my grandparents only wanted so many, so just given to our house, which we had the room with the top with roof to floor of a bookshelf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember looking through. They had them in school, and I would look through them, and
Yep.
man, I would just imagine and read the articles. And I don't know, kids don't do that nowadays. But yeah, it fascinated me. Um, I guess that's why I am where I am today, is because I looked at those things and I was so enthralled with the faraway places. It made me want to think of traveling, seeing the world. And in fact, nowadays you can just get on your computer and see it virtually almost. Look at pictures from all over the place. And I don't know. Sometimes now you have to just question, are they real or not? That's the bad part.
That's the problem now that AI is taking all the information and it doesn't know fiction from truth. It doesn't know jokes from truth, and it's just taking everything as the. It doesn't know any better. It doesn't know what fiction is. It just takes all information as facts, and it gets very confused easily. And that's why AI right now is fallible. It gives us a lot of bad information because it doesn't know any better, at least not yet.
Yeah.
Maybe they want that's another thing. Maybe they want AI to be like that just so they can hide information from us, confuse us. Because we can't trust anything anymore. That's
I
nothing.
I
We can't trust anything anymore.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It went from, wow, that's cool, this is great information, to, I don't know if it's real. Where'd they get this from? Anyway, back to Erich von Däniken books. I'll just name off a bunch of them. In
Good luck.
1968, he had Charity of the Gods. 69, Return to the Stars. He had the 72, The Gold of the Gods. 74,
Yep.
Miracle of the Gods. 77, According to the Evidence. 78, 79, Signs of the Gods. 81, Pathway to the Gods. 82, Gods and Their Grand Design. 84, 85, some five new reminders of the future. 89, Eyes of the Sphinx. 91, he brought out a youth book. 90, and there was a bunch of German books. I don't know if they're in English. But 97, Arrival of the Gods. It was focused around the Nazca lines. 99, Odyssey of the Gods. In 2001, the gods were astronauts. 2003, a bunch of short stories. He wrote a novel in 2002. I don't know what it's about. It's in German. 2005, of Mysteries. 2006, The Planet of Lies. It was a novel. 2007, History is Wrong. 2010, Twilight of the Gods, The Mayan Calendar, and the Return of the Extraterrestrials, and The Evidence of the Gods, Volume 1. 2011, Astronaut Gods of Maya. The 2012, Remnants of the Gods, Volume 3. 2013, Impossible Truths, Volume 4. 2014, The End of Silence. 2015, Eyewitness of the Gods. 2017, Gods Never Left Us. 2018, War of the Gods. 2019, Confessions of the Egyptologist. 2020, Evolution is Wrong. 2021, Answers. Wow, he didn't let up, did he? Wrote right to the end. 2022, Why Are We on Earth? Which is not yet published in English. And 2023, And They Were Here, not yet published in English. And his final books, 2024, Notes of My Life. Wow. And some of them are not even, we can't even read them yet. So don't worry, for many years to come, there will be more books for you to read, unless, of course, you read German.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of them. That's another thing is that he translated some of his books were German. He translated to English.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, a lot of stuff there. I hope everybody got a lot out of this. This is, like I said, just go read one of his books. This one here. Now, the information has changed throughout the years. There's different versions of this, updated versions. I think he updated a lot of this stuff, and which is great because it should be updated, just like science. If you find out something new, you should update it. Not say, nope, we're just going to believe the world is flat. We're going to believe the sun revolves around the earth. Think about it, if we still believe that stuff, well, we could have never sent a man to the moon. Am I right?
True. You're right. You're right.
I mean,
You're right.
Our beliefs sometimes hinder our science. And I think that's all controlled by people who, well, it boils down to the money. Who's funding the archaeologists' digs? Who is finding what? And what does the government feel is appropriate to let out to the public?
That's the truth right there. It's what is the government? What are corporations who fund these archaeologists allowing us to see? There's a lot of levels to this. So there's a lot. A lot of it's hidden from us.
Yeah. You got some notes you want to add to this?
Oh, the Red Enigmas was mentioning the sarcophagus with the spaceman, and that's one of the big things Erich von Däniken might have taken liberties with, which I can't find my notes. I had so many notes. Like I said, I got 11 pages of notes, and the sarcophagus lid with. It's not Easter Island. Oh no, that's the pillar. That's the. Yes, I like I said, I have notes on so many things he had. Okay, yes, the Palenque sarcophagus lid, the Mayan ruler of or ancient astronaut, which is basically supposedly he's controlling knobs and things, and they're saying it's and of course he's got a pole coming out next to him or through him, and they say that that pole is the circle of life, and the the myth is that he's between the death range and the life range, and he's between the two of them. Others say no, that he's controlling a spaceship, so back and forth. But that sarcophagus lid is a fascinating artistic piece, and there's so much to that that we can't comprehend. So yes, we've taken liberty to, oh, we know what it means. It means he's bouncing between the living area and the dead area, and that's the tree of life, and back and forth, and he's climbing. But it doesn't make sense. If this was a ruler, how did he become a god of the living and the dead when he was supposed to be one of their rulers? So it gets convoluted what the real story is. But they, archaeologists says, no, he's not a spaceman. He's an ancient ruler who was balanced between the living and the dead, and and they tell the story, but turn the king into a god. But he was after the gods. It gets, the story gets all confusing. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. And I have it here. Let's see. So takes me a second, but you're talking, I could
Oh
find it.
yeah.
I'm pretty
It's
fast on
like
that.
look a spaceman Pelepeque in Mexico.
Yeah,
Let's
this
see.
this
Let's
is
see.
the one you're talking about.
That's exactly the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And he's what is he doing? Why is he on his? My first thought is, why is he on his back?
So the archaeologists claim that the Mayans believe that Peleque Pakal, they say Pakal, the central figure, is falling backwards into the jaws of the underworld. Pakal teeters on the head of the sun monster, who is depicted with skeletal jaws, a flesh nose, and eyes, such that he is pointed halfway between the underworld and the living, and is the moment of sunset. Uh, from his stomach grows the world tree, the Mayan cosmology. This tree stands in the center of the universe like a fireman's pole. This all goes into astronauts, where it goes. They're saying flat out that what the Mayans believe, don't believe in the spaceman, but then they go back to space, the universe. The heavens are marked. The heavens are marked by a central bird perched on the tree topmost branch. The lid is a statement of Mayans' belief that the death of a king was a nourishment for the cosmic order.
Hmm.
So they're saying he's not an astronaut, but he's also a space traveler. Okay, that's the problem.
Yeah,
Okay, let's just say Eric von Däniken's 100% wrong, but why did he catch that he's in space, that he's traveling in space? But the Mayans, archaeologists say no. The Mayans believe he was just a ruler who had who had passed away. Um,
yeah.
it's very convoluted and very confusing.
It is. It is. I mean, if you really look at it, once you know that your eyes are open. I mean, of course, this is just as somebody's interpretation. And he's like I said, he looks like he's sitting in a chair. He's faced up. He's trying to. His hands are doing something. If he was dead, his hands would be, set by his side like this, or they would be hanging at his waist or whatever. But looks like he's trying to move stuff or hold
Right.
on to things. And what? Why are they got something shoved up his nose?
You're right.
It's another thing. And his head that's supposed to be held by a skeletal a mouth of a monster of some sort. It doesn't really look like it. It looks like his head is resting on this pillar, like a couch of some sort.
In his feet are doing two different things too. It's like both his hands are doing two different things, and both his feet are doing two different things.
Yep.
Like, I mean, these are what we do when we travel in a
Yeah.
car, where our feet are doing different things. If you have
Yeah.
a clutch, but that's something different. Yeah, what is good? They had a theory that this is what. Oh no, he's just a ruler who passed away, and this is his story of passing from the living to the dead. Ah, there's a lot more to it. If this is a dead ruler, why is he controlling and manipulating things, knobs with his feet and his hands? It's
Yes.
hard. It's really hard to not see Eric Van Daniken's theories.
Yeah.
Um,
And then the tree of life is growing out of his chest, but clearly the tree is behind him. Because
right,
here's his unless this is his giant belly or something, but the
right,
tree is clearly not growing out of his chest. His chest is right here.
right.
It's growing, it's behind him. This is a structure, obviously. See, this is where scientists give you that their interpretation of it that will fit the narrative and then leaves you hanging there going, well, that makes no sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. And supposedly he's falling into the underworld. No, his head is being supported. His feet are. He's not falling anywhere. He's manipulating things. He's doing stuff.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
active. He's active for a dead man. He's doing a lot of stuff on so many levels.
exactly. I totally agree with that. And these people back in those days, they, I always say they depicted things naturally. They weren't liars. You know what I'm saying? If they seen something, they drew what they seen. They didn't embellish it or didn't just make it up out of thin air like we do today. Like, oh, we're gonna make up something. No, they drew something out of what they seen. They drew what they knew. They drew things that made sense.
And also, just thinking about something. If this is a sarcophagus, shouldn't there be more? If this king got a sarcophagus, shouldn't there be a bunch of them so they can compare and contrast rather than go,
Yeah,
oh no, this is this king, Pakal's sarcophagus, and his Jeremy's, and his Vil's, and his all these rulers, and this is how we compare how the different sarcophagus are. No, there's only one.
yep,
Why was this one depicted like this? Actively moving stuff around. It does ask for a lot of questions.
it does. It does exactly. You're totally right on that. There's that's how it always is. Like you go to Egypt, you find one tomb with a mummy, and then there's another and another and another and another and another.
Right, right. Yes, exactly. They were all yeah, exactly. And then also the sarcophagus for the mummies were pretty significant, pretty similar. I mean,
Yes.
another funny thing is his feet are controlling things, and like, well, we can't do that. Yeah, I've had girlfriends who could manipulate things with their feet. They could their hands were like I mean their feet were like another pair of hands. So
Yep.
I believe people. So he probably had the ability to do that kind of thing. That's what they were showing off, that he was manipulating things with his feet and his hands, his toes, and it's a lot to this.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So I mean, the skills he's showing, he's got lots of skills. He's not a dead man. He's an actively doing stuff. They're showing something important.
Yep. That's exactly right. Well, as we wrap this up, so we're um, finishing our hour and a half here. But that was a great one. That was a good one. I'm glad I had the picture for us to discuss that with. Um, but yeah, this is Erich von Däniken. Read the book. I suggest you get this book. If you don't get and you don't want to read, you're not a good reader, go get it on Spotify. They have an audio book there. Yeah, it costs a little money, but you can read it over and over and over again as you're driving down the road in your car. Good one to have in your library because we could actually probably do about 10 shows off of this book. I swear we could.
Yeah,
um,
Eric Van Daniken is a very interesting, eclectic individual. His history is there's a lot of high points and a lot of low points, but he was like a cat who just always knew how to keep himself dry or duck. I don't know. He always had to get when he was getting into trouble, he knew how to get himself out of trouble no matter what. He got deep into trouble a few times, but he knew how to get himself out of it and always landed on his feet. Amazing man.
yeah, I mean, and everybody wanted him. I guess he had a story about Pablo Escobar, the big drug dealer guy down in South America, found some elongated skulls and wanted him to come down there and research the skulls. But when he found out who he was like, I'm not going.
Well, that's the thing. That's that's another story in itself. Some of the nastiest mafia guys were the nicest people to the locals. He was kind of like their protector. So no
Yep.
matter what happens, there's a good and bad in everyone. That's the thing. I think that's the whole thing about no matter what you feel about Eric Van Daniken being a con man or a great intellectual. In the end, he's all of it because he knew. Yes, he took some sacrifices. He had to take a few liberties, but he also knew how to present something that was hidden. He took things that were
Yes.
all the professors and all the elite would hide from us, brought it to the light of day, might have taken liberties, but he made it fun for the common people. He made it
Yep.
fun for us, and he saved a lot of the stuff because if he hadn't done that, a lot of it would have been lost, I think, by technology or companies or governments. They would just rolled over it. Who cares about this old garbage? We don't need this. But he showed it up, and people were interested in it, and they had to save it. And then tourism saved everything because without Eric von Daniken, there'd be no tourism to travel around to see these ancient sites.
Yeah, this is absolutely true. And he was on Ancient Aliens. I remember seeing him on there a number of times. Um,
He
you
was
know,
Ancient Aliens. Everything in Ancient Aliens is based off of Eric von Daniken. No question about it. Because even the other ones, I knew a few of them. They based a lot of stuff from him. He
yeah,
helped them get interested so they could do their own research and take liberties and going, this isn't what archaeology says. I'm an archaeologist. Can I do some fringe archaeology? And gave them the power to take liberties and wonder and ask questions and not follow the book what the book says. Because a lot
yeah.
of these companies want you to follow the book because that's the story. That's the story they want you to follow, even though that's may not be quite the whole story. They don't want you to look into the whole story.
hmm That is so true. Um, that is so true. Okay. Somebody says, "What is your showtime, Nina?" I'll tell you what. Tomorrow we'll be on Nina's show. We got Micah Dank coming on, so go check that out. And with that, remember, people, go out and buy yourself a shirt, Milky Way Soul Tribe, before they're gone, or get your cup with the Native American myths and legends with me and David Null, best storyteller on YouTube. Lots to check out there. Buy yourself a sweatshirt, a shirt, a mug, all kinds of good stuff over there. Spread the Milky Way stuff. There's more stuff on there. Arna Karana stuff. The Beyond Truth, our new show over there. Nina will be out on. We'll be out there. What 8 o'clock tomorrow Central Time? Oh, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And go to the Milky Way story. It's pinned in the comments above and the chat and stuff. So check that out. It's been a great show. Thank you, Lucky, for coming on. Great insight into all of this stuff.
Yes, it is an adventure. That's a lot of stuff is an adventure and allowing yourself to let go of your disbelief and just have fun with it. And I think that's what Eric Von Däniken taught us is that this might not quite be right, but read the story for it. Just enjoy it. It's entertainment, no question about
Mhm.
it. And you might get something from it. Maybe not. Maybe you do, but you're gonna at least be entertained. That's these good books are. They're definitely entertainment.
Definitely makes you, if you ever question everything, this is a good reason to read this book and then question everything again because there's a lot out there that we just don't know. We're kept in the dark. It's not, instead of showing the Super Bowl, they should be showing, this kind of stuff, making people say, hey, our history is wrong. At least that's why I think.
Yeah, and
Anyway,
Eric Van Daniken's official YouTube channel is having a video tomorrow at 5 p.m.
oh, well, there you go.
I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Well, I think megaliths were a warning for the future. So I guess he's still producing content even past the grave. So good for
Yeah.
him.
Good for him. That's right. 90 years old. 9 years old. With that, everybody, remember to go out, do something nice for yourself, do something nice for your neighbor. Hey, go buy yourself a shirt or go buy your neighbor a shirt and give it to him and say, hey, check the Milky Way out because they got a lot of good stuff over there. And with that, remember, if nothing else, give your neighbor a smile, spread the word, and remember to be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.